Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Heartstopper, Season 1, Episode 2, Crush. In this episode, I think the whole time I was watching, my face was just like, and I was just making this sound like, so that's pretty much like my entire viewing experience in a nutshell. Get ready for more of that. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Cindy for commissioning this episode, and thank you, Cindy, for your patience. I'm starting almost a half hour late because for some reason Crowdcast decided I had been on a free trial that was over, which was not happening, but they thought it was. So, you guys, I'm so relieved too, because I thought I was going to have to postpone this, and I desperately needed to watch the next episode, and I was about to be a very, very cranky girl. So I'm extremely happy I don't have to put that off. This was the most adorable, and you guys, I am notorious for being hard on romance plot lines and things. And I stand by it completely. Like, most romance isn't done well. And if something isn't either written well, where you actually can feel the chemistry between characters, or you can understand someone's attraction to a certain person, it can be so tiring and frustrating to read because you're just like, I don't get it. You keep putting yourself out for this person and they suck. Or when you're watching something and the actors don't have chemistry. Oh my God, the most tedious shit. It's so painful. Like, one of the most referenced rom-coms of all time is Notting Hill. Remind me, guys, Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, right? I have never seen Notting Hill. I have seen clips that are shared to reference romance. They're like clips that people are just like, oh my God, I was like this. And I will watch those clips and feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone, because Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant have absolutely zero chemistry. There is nothing there. The two of them don't want to be together. There's nothing in me that feels it when I'm watching it. And granted, it's out of context clips, but it really shouldn't matter. You should still be able to tell. And I remember actually being confused the first time I saw a clip, because I thought it had to be from a different movie, that they were like doing a thing where they were pretending it was one thing and it was, you know how people do that? They'll be like, oh, I'm going to, when I get old, I'm going to tell my kids this was Twilight kind of thing. Because I could not wrap my head around the idea that this was supposed to be like a goals level romantic comedy. It felt so wooden and lifeless and nothing. And it was like, once I realized that was actually a real scene, I felt like I was being punked. I just did. So, Cloak says, I saw an article today about how Neil Gaiman originally wanted Hugh Grant to play Aziraphale in Good Omens. Listen, this is why we can't let writers, like, you have your place, writers, but then there are times where you've really got to, okay, no. Oh my God. Anyway, okay. So, just moving. Cloak, I'm speechless. I'm without speech. But this show has nailed chemistry. It is flying off the screen. And the moment when Nick has his hand over a sleeping Charlie's hand and there's the spark static sound, I was like, yup, I believe you. There are so many things I've seen where I would see that and just be like, that's what you wish was happening. It is not. But I am shipping these two so hard. They're about to just turn into actual ships. It's very bad. I'm just losing my mind. So we start things off in Nick's room, and he is on his phone looking through Charlie's Instagram while Charlie is on the drums. And I really enjoy the fact that even though we know Charlie is low-key obsessed with Nick, and we know he's gone into his Instagram and looked around, this is a moment where Charlie is taking some time for himself to do something creative that he just likes to do while Nick is obsessing a little bit. And he's looking through his pictures, and we're getting a lot of adorable, like me and a cat and me and my friends with sparklers and whatnot. And then there's one that just says, I hate this place. And it's the view of the hallway to the boys' locker room. And this makes Nick stop dead. And he sees the hallway, and suddenly his face drops. And we get voiceovers of other boys talking. Did you hear someone in year 9 is gay? It's not really bullying. Like, he sort of asked for it. This is an all-boys school. What did he expect? He's so gross. I bet he was looking at us in the changing room. I'd rather be dead than be gay. He's looking at us. What a weirdo. He's such a loser. And in the midst of all this, there's animation of like these towering figures that are sort of pencil sketched onto the film. And it goes from being Nick standing at the end of the hall to Charlie. And it's such a, like, I really like this because there's multiple things I'm taking away, and they may or may not all be right, or some are right. But what I got from this was, one, Nick realizing as he's looking at this that he was part of making Charlie's life hell, potentially. Like, not necessarily that he bullied him, but at least he was friends with people who were bullying him and maybe just didn't say anything to them. And once you realize that you've just been a coward and that you actually care about a person that you didn't stand up for, it can hit very different. And then there's also potentially that he did make fun of him or chime in, and, you know, also though, it could simply be he's wondering about his own sexuality, and the echoes of what all the guys were saying about him are suddenly applying to him, and now that hits very different. And it's one of those things where, like, I kind of want it to be the first one a little bit more, because if it's the second one and he's only feeling like, well, that sucks because now he may be gay, it's a little self-centered. But if it's like, oh, I'm realizing now that I wasn't standing up for my friend the way I should have, there's a bit of like selflessness there and a desire to do better. And like I said, it could be both. It could, you know, like, things are rarely one thing. But it's just a really, like, the expression on Charlie's face in that scene, he really looks like he is just about to burst into tears. Like, he's just really convincing. So at this point, he, like, looks in the mirror and takes a pause. And then he starts to text Charlie back. And it's really fun because, like, the last text from Charlie was the thank you X. Now we see Nick trying to decide what to text to him. That's okay. It seemed like a serious situation. Please don't talk to Ben anymore. And then finally he decides on, are you feeling okay? Which later, he actually does wind up sending those other texts, but he waits until they're like in the midst of a real conversation before he starts to do it. So when Charlie gets this text, it's kind of adorable. He just drops what he's doing and goes and sits on his floor. Like, this is the thing about this show that I think they really nail is how encompassing a crush is when you're in high school. It takes over your whole life, everything you see through that lens. And I distinctly remember the moments that my boyfriend would call, and no matter what I was doing, that was over now, you know, or when he would show up. We didn't have texting, but if we did, it would have been, I don't know how I could have handled it. Like, kids today have a real uphill battle because technology is so conducive to like making this obsessive tendency in these years of your life so much easier to give into and so much more encompassing even than it was already, that I'm like, how could you live? Like, you know what I'm saying? So he is so excited to get this text from Nick, and he texts back, yeah, I'm fine, don't worry. And Nick says, are you sure? And Charlie takes a minute, and it seems like he's sort of asking himself, am I? And at first he says, yeah, honestly, I'm fine. But then he's like, am I? And he deletes it. Then he starts to type, yes, really. And stops again, deletes it. And I love that we get to see Nick seeing the 3 dots on his end, Charlie typing, and it keeps going away. Like, can tell he's starting and stopping. So Nick winds up sort of setting his phone aside, clearly not really sure if he should encourage him, what should he do? And then he decides to follow up, and he says, I love this too, you guys. He pulls up on the screen like he's worried. Maybe he did send a text and it just hasn't refreshed yet. Oh God, have we all been there or what? He says, you can talk to me about it if you want. Sounds like a pretty serious situation. You don't have to if you don't want, but I am your friend and I do care. And I thought that was a really perfectly judged tone. My door is open, no pressure, but it's not like I'm checking up on you out of a sense of obligation and I don't actually want to hear it. I really, if you want to talk about it, I do want to hear it. And Ben's, like, the whole story with Ben begins to come out at this point, and Charlie is explaining how all of this went down. And Ben, like, just walked into the music room while Charlie was practicing, as Ben is saying, I heard that you came out, and sitting next to him with his like arm pressed against him in a way that's very like, it's very clear what he's doing here. It's inviting, you know? And we find out it actually wasn't voluntary. This wasn't something that, like, Charlie was so brave he made an announcement and everybody, you know, they weren't supposed to know. And somehow he got found out. And that fucking sucks. Like, it just, anytime a major part of some person's identity is like just ripped from them and thrown to the crowd, out of their control, it is so ugly. And the idea of being in high school and being gay and not, like, you're in an all boys school, so it is a potentially like really fraught situation, even more so than it would be in an average co-ed school. And it isn't even like, I just can't imagine, you know? And growing up, when I was in high school, there were several gay kids in my school. There was a girl who, she was gay, but recently I actually found out they are trans and I think are now using he, him pronouns. But at the time, he and I were like super buds. And looking back, I realize now that he had a crush on me because he literally like, tried to make out with me a couple times, but I was not fucking getting it. I was very dense sometimes. So, but we were like hanging out all the time. And so I talked to them a lot about like what it was like and, you know, the fact that their parents knew, and they were Black and Jewish. So they already had a lot going on with their identity and they were feeling kind of overwhelmed, and they came out themselves. They like were in control of the narrative, and it still felt really, really overwhelming. And I remember just being so impressed with the fact that they like decided to just go ahead and take on another thing, you know, because like it just, that's just a lot on top of what's normally going on with hormones and I just figuring out who you are, and you're getting ready to go away to college, and like, what do you want to do with your life? There's so many questions in a cis person's life, a cis straight person, and adding on all of this other stuff that is going to be difficult to navigate, that you're unsure about, and that could change and just completely evolve over time. Sounds really daunting. So that was one of my friends. And then the other was a guy who was openly gay, had come out, and was kind of like a bit of a spokesperson for the queer community at the school, and really owned it, and was just like, whatever, you have a problem with me. And I think sometimes about how unfazed and unbothered he seemed, but I am sure it wasn't really like that for him all the time. You know, he had to put up a strong face, and mostly people did seem to like leave him alone and be like, hey, cool. I think it helped that he was cis and athletic and really attractive. So it was sort of like he was in a position of power in so many other ways that when he came out, it was sort of like, would you want to come at me? Because I probably could beat your ass. And so most people left him alone. But there were definitely kids that I found out later came out. And, you know, I and others had our suspicions about, but we just sort of left it alone. And we found out once they were in college, or even once they left college, that they were in same-sex relationships and stuff. But it was like something that I really understood, that even though everyone around them had their suspicions and was sort of like, you know, you can come out, it's fine. It's a different thing to do that with people who have known you a long time than it is to sort of like dive into your new identity amongst people who haven't been there for like your awkward figuring it out stage. And I really sympathized and was like, nah, yeah, I don't know that I would have come out while I was in school either. I may have waited as well. So anyway, this whole thing is just like really, it's really sweet because it feels like Nick is just thinking about things in a way that he hadn't. And as Charlie is telling him this story and we're seeing the way that Ben is flirting with him, it's so like, it's so understandable how at the time Charlie would take it as, oh, okay, here's this guy who just found out I'm gay and maybe has had a crush on me and is finally realizing that that's something he can pursue. When in retrospect now you can see that he just saw an opportunity to experiment, and that it wasn't about Charlie as a person at all, which is so dehumanizing. It just, you know, and this is also like a thing that happened with my friends, where if you're in a school and you're queer and there's a limited pool of like 10 other queer people, everybody will start to just try and like get you to hook up with those people because they're there and you're both queer, so go for it. And it's like, but I'm not into them. That's not, but there's so few options that you're just like, you know what I mean? And that's part of, I think, why some people waited until college, because they didn't want to like add that wrench into the dating game when everything was already under a microscope and there were so few options. Better to wait until you're out in the world and there's like a bigger pool and you can really try things out and see if it fits. So anyway, Charlie, there's a moment where he says to Nick, I know he's your friend. And Nick writes back, well, he's definitely not anymore, with 4 exclamation points. God, I hate him so much. Please don't ever talk to him again. And I was like, oh, you're getting real spicy here. And in a beautiful moment of fishing, Charlie says, thank you for being my supportive straight friend. Ha ha. And he sends it, and he waits with bated breath, and Nick replies, LOL, that's okay. And you just see Charlie's heartbreak. Later on, there's a whole conversation between him and Tao where Tao is like, he's straight, and Charlie argues for a while, but then eventually says he is straight. He told me. And I was like, he didn't, though. He didn't. He didn't correct you. He didn't disagree with you. He didn't say the words, though. That's not the same thing as telling you. That's all I'm saying. But at this point, that's about it for Charlie. And it's like, his whole face changes. But then Nick says, if he ever comes near you again, I'll kick his ass. And it's like, despite the fact that Charlie kind of feels like he should know better, he can't help but like feel a little Twitter again. And so he sends a heart emoji. And that's the end of the convo. And I love when he puts his phone down. Charlie takes his breath like he just went for a run. Like, which is exactly what these kinds of interactions are like. It's so high pressure. You're so excited. You're analyzing everything you say. And Nick has a real like expression on his face when he sees the heart and puts his phone down. And there's a sense of like, oh God, oh God, oh God. So then we cut to the next morning. I just want to acknowledge that there's a huge rainbow over the school. I don't know if that's CGI or if that was really there and it was just very opportune, but there it is. And we have Elle at school. And Elle is still struggling with making friends. She's sitting alone, and that teacher who had taken her phone away, who is so pretty, by the way. Every time she shows up, I'm just like, God, what skincare do you use? She comes over and is just like, I see that you're kind of having trouble making friends. I know it's like tough coming over in the middle of the year like that. And, which is basically like exactly what I was saying. And then she says, have you met, I could assign Tara Jones to look after you. And I don't remember, is Tara the black girl or the white girl? But when she says this, the camera sort of focuses on the two of them over at another desk. And they're playing some sort of game where they're rolling dice. And it looks like they're wearing cloaks. And I was like, oh my God, these are nerds. I was very excited about it, to be honest. It may not be cloaks. It may be that they simply have their cardigans or whatever like draped over their shoulders. But it looked very much to me like it was cloaks. And I just kind of want to believe that, even though I'm sure that would be against dress code, you know. So the next day when she comes into class, one of the girls comes up to her, and I really kind of appreciated that, like, we do get a montage of Elle being alone, but there's never really a sense of like her being purposely ostracized. It always feels more just like nobody notices. And while that also sucks for its own reasons, I was just so worried it was going to turn out she was being bullied that the fact that people simply weren't considering her seemed better in comparison, even though it also has its drawbacks. Tara's the black girl, Darcy's the white girl. Okay, cool. Thank you, Cindy. So finally one day she comes in and Tara is like, comes up to her and introduces herself and is like, do you want to sit with us at lunch? And there's a real, like, a moment that I took at face value, and I appreciated Elle asking. She's like, did our teacher tell you to make friends with me? Like, is that what this is? Because it takes several days. And the girl says, Tara says no, in a way that's like, that's weird that you would ask that. And I believed her, but I'm not positive that I should have. I don't know. We will come back to that. So we then go to Charlie, and he is in maybe study hall or something, and he is looking through all of the messages on his phone between him and Nick. And guys, there's a lot of them. And the top one that we see first is, I mean, I thought I was, but now I don't know. And I was like, what the fuck? Did they just have that conversation off screen? But then the reply from Charlie is, we're going to have a Mario Kart tournament, aren't we? And I was like, you fucking assholes. They knew what they were doing. Ugh, what a tease. And I think we are. It's on. And there's just a lot. He's scrolling through. I mean, they are texting fucking constantly. And this is when Tao says, he's straight. You only need to glance at him to see that he is a heterosexual. Isaac, back me up on this. And Isaac talks. I wasn't sure whether he ever would, but he does. And Charlie argues, masculine guys can be gay. You're not exactly the authority on working out who is and isn't gay. And he says this to Tao in such a way that I stopped and was like, oh shit, wait. Because like the last episode, I sort of thought there was that Tao was crushing on Elle, and that it seemed like Elle was sort of crushing back, but that they weren't connecting. And now I'm thinking that maybe Tao is crushing on Elle, but Elle is gay and isn't into him and is into girls instead. I thought that initially she was like drawn to Tara and Darcy simply because they're queer and that felt safe. But now I'm starting to be like, ooh, but maybe she liked girls though. So maybe it's just Tao being like, oh, damn it, you know? Because he seems a little crushed at the way that Charlie says this. And he also says to Isaac, bisexual people exist. And I love the way that Isaac just sort of gives him like a very slight nod, but his lips are pressed together and he rolls his eyes a little bit as if to be like, okay, buddy, whatever you need to tell yourself. Like, there's a real long-suffering feeling to both of them. But this is when Charlie says, I know he's straight. He told me. And I'm just like, he didn't. No, he did not. I know you don't think you're lying, but you're lying a little bit. So then he goes to speak to Mr. Ajayi and asks, how do I stop liking a straight guy? And Ajayi says, oh, the question for the ages. This is one of those things that it's the sort of thing that I haven't got experience with because I'm straight, but I could deeply understand how fucking frustrating that would be. Like, as somebody who had been just obsessively crushing and boy crazy, hormones raging, constantly just wanting to be like making out or fucking at any given time, and the amount of energy I would put into that, if I found out that somebody I was into not only didn't like me, but was not into my entire gender, it would devastate me. Like, I don't know what I'd do. I had that happen one time, but he had not worked out that he was gay yet. So we still had sex. So I still kind of got to like get my cake and eat it too, a little bit. And this is such a like popular problem / fantasy that it's like its own porn genre, is like the gay friend getting his straight friend to fuck it's like its own whole thing. So anyway, this like reaction he has, there's a real sense of like, boy, you are in for it, kid, because this is just the beginning. And I love when he says, I thought you had a boyfriend. And Charlie says, I dumped him. He was horrible. And the teacher says, wow, being a teenager is terrible. His advice is repress it and suffer, or put some space between the two of you, which Charlie, of course, refuses to do. Immediately, nope, can't. That is not realistic. He's a really good friend. I'm afraid you're just going to have to suffer then. Indeed. Indeed. Oh, that's right. I forgot that Tara comes and talks to her because of her pencil case that she painted flowers on, which is really cute, by the way. So yeah, I was a little bit like suspicious, even though I believed Tara in the moment. But then when she goes to the lunchroom, they really do wave her down and want to talk with her. And there's a couple moments where I was just like, these two are together, right? Like, come on. And later on, we have another one of those moments. And I was like, I want Elle to say something. And I was so glad that she did, because I was worried we were going to go into the next episode with her dancing around it. But Elle seems like a very direct person. And I'm like, I haven't gotten to know her very well yet, but I get a good vibe off her. I feel like she's somebody who just is self-possessed in a way that's extremely difficult to do when you're that young. But yeah, I love, oh my God, right? Cindy is quoting Just Gal Pals. And that was one of them where I was like, what's going on here? Elle says, I kept getting suspended because of my hair length. They have this stupid chin length or above rule. And I was like, it's so wild to me how many places still have these sorts of really specific rules. And like, if you go search even for a moment on social media, or you tend to see it more on social media because it will have happened to somebody who posts about it. But of course, after they post, articles go up. So you could also just Google it. But the number of teachers who have taken it upon themselves to cut off the hair of students is literally mind-boggling. And it's almost always black kids that they are cutting their hair off of, by the way, which adds an entire other layer that's super gross. So there's also been an instance where I think it was a Native American kid, and he had like a braid to his waist, and the teacher like made him cut it off. And it's also something that they'll like present as a requirement to participate in certain sports like wrestling and stuff where hair can be a hazard. And it's like, if the kid wants to have their hair, they accept the hazard. I don't feel like they should get penalized for that. Anyway, hair is just such a completely like, it's a minefield. It's such a simple, stupid thing, and we make such a fuss over it. It's just, we need to grow up. So anyway, the whole vibe between them, it's very adorable. I really liked their energy. I love, this is when she says, have you been friends a long time? And Darcy sort of gives Tara a look. It always feels like it's Tara who is holding back, and Darcy is the one that's like giving her the big elbow nudge. It's always Darcy going, yeah, friends, with this like tone. And yeah, she's the one here who says best gal pals. I really like the fact that she's sort of going, look, I'll keep the secret, but I am not going to be discreet about it. So that is sort of the moment where you see Elle light up. And I think that was her initial suspicion right there. And she was sort of like, oh shit, did I find them? We cut then to Nick and Charlie. And Nick asks Charlie to come over his house to meet his dog. Guys, the look on Charlie's face when he invites him, This actor is too much. I mean, it just, I feel it in my chest when he gets these looks on his face. It's like I'm feeling it. It's almost too much. And Nick is so cash about it, but I'm sort of like, it is costing him everything to be cash right now. You could tell. We have adorable getting ready to go see my straight friend that I'm hoping isn't really that straight. And he's mussing his hair up when his sister jumps in and says, "Where are you going? Round of friends? Tow's?" "No, his name's Nick." And she just looks at him, huddled over her straw, with this sort of expressionless, she's very supportive and yet not tolerant of bullshit. That kind of vibe where she's like, "Look, I'm here for you, but I'm also not going to humor you when you're like, is my hair too short?" So he goes over, and it's just a really tense moment before he rings the doorbell. And I almost thought maybe he wouldn't. And I wanted to like shake him, but he finally presses the button and Nick answers with his dog. What is her name? Is it Nellie? Yeah, Nellie. What an adorable, she looks like a sheepdog or something. And there's a sense for me, at least, of Nick watching the way that this guy handles his dog, because like, I know if I were dating and I had Pippin, it would be a deal breaker for me how a man interacted with my dog. It would be everything. And I can't tell you like how many times I have been sort of like in another room, or I've been on my phone and I look up and I see Owen with a dog's face between his hands, like doing this. And I'm like 1,000% more attracted to him. Every time I see him like being sweet to one of the dogs, I'm just like, oh, look at that hot man. Look at him. I love it. It's just like, it's just, you know? So, Charlie got a haircut. I will be honest, guys, even though he asked his sister if it's too short, I didn't notice. I'll tell you who does. Nick notices. He says, it looks great. And it's clear that's everything. That's all he needed. So he comes inside. We have a series of adorable, flirty moments. They're playing Mario Kart. Apparently, Nick is getting his ass handed to him by Charlie. He says, "How are you so good at this?" And Charlie says, "You get to be good at real sports and I get to be good at fake ones." And he says, "You're good at everything. You're a proper little nerd." Adorable. "No, I'm not. You are. You're good at video games, literally all school subjects, but especially math, and playing the drums, befriending dogs, and you are good at sports. You run so fast." And Charlie says, "Shut up," and puts his hand over his mouth and pushes him back on the bed. And I'm not mad at it, but I am going to say that's a real ballsy move. Like, that's some outright flirting. And that's Charlie doing it. And okay, Charlie, you're taking a risk and I respect it. But I am surprised because you seem so nervous and then you just pull it out sometimes. That sounded wrong. You get what I mean. When I say pull it out, I mean the confidence, not the other thing. So anyway, they get interrupted by the fact that it is snowing out. And I was kind of relieved that there was something to break this moment up, because it felt too soon for us to be flirting while laying next to each other on the bed. So he borrows a hoodie and they go outside in the snow. This is one of those scenes where it's adorable and precious, but also I am always distracted by studio snow because it never really looks right. And you'd really think it's 2023. We should have fake snow down, right? I feel like we should have figured this out by now. And it's just it doesn't look correct here, but it is a very cute scene, and we have them like playing with Nellie in the snow, and later on it's clear they took a bunch of photos together, and it is like the most picturesque Instagram little date. Honestly, he's like flicking his hair, Nick to Charlie. It's just like, it's very intimate, and I'm thinking, okay. So then we have his mom, Olivia. And this was such a good moment. I love this. He's making himself a cup of tea, and she's sitting at the table and talking to him while she's like scrolling through something. And she says, Charlie seems like a lovely boy. When did you meet him? And he's very different to your other friends. You seem much more yourself around him. And Nick says, do I? And she says, you do. And she says it in a sort of offhand way where it's clear she isn't sensing what a big statement that feels like to Nick. The look on Nick's face, there's like, definitely he's a bit bothered by it when he takes a sip of tea, but he also stops and looks at her and then smiles a little. So it's not just, oh God, am I gay? It's a, wow, even she sees it. Oh God. Well, like you could just see the wheels turning, and he is scared, which like, yeah, but he's not running away. And I love the fact that she can see that he is being more himself. This feels like if you have a good relationship with your parents, that is the sort of thing that they can sense and notice. You know, not everybody has this sort of vibe, and some people's parents are not going to get it. I am really hopeful that his mom isn't homophobic. Like, if he comes out, which I'm hoping he does, I don't want her to be a dick about it. And it's the thing that I want to do is sort of guess how she'll react based on who they cast, because that can be a bit of a giveaway sometimes. There'll be actors who often play a type, and you know when they show up, they're going to be an abusive douchebag, or they're going to be the quirky, like, you know what I'm saying? And she is all over the place as an actress, but I feel like she tends a lot to play somebody with a stick up their ass. That is not the energy I'm getting from her in this show, though. So I'm just hoping that she isn't an issue. And it's the kind of thing that you run into where, and I talked about this with Rashawn on one of the Ted Lasso episodes, but also on my Twitter, that a lot of people feel like if you're going to represent an experience, you should also highlight the pitfalls. But gay folks are tired, you know? It's like black folks having to see black trauma all the time. We get it. There are people who are homophobic. There are people who are racist. Do we always need that in our shit? Can't we just have a story where we're like free of that for a little while? So part of me is like, well, her being completely cool with it, how realistic is that? And then I immediately want to be like, who cares about realistic? I don't want it to be a problem. It's not a problem. Can we just not have it be a problem? So anyway, this is the thing that's like in the back of my mind right now. So then we have this scene. It was really, really tough. Nick is hanging out with his friends, but he's not really with them. He's leaning up against this picnic table and they're all hanging out, but he's not part of the conversation. And he's texting Charlie, and he's like finished writing the sentences. I was wondering if you wanted to hang out again this weekend. And just as he's typing that, some girl comes up and starts to poke her nose into his business and be like, so who are you texting? And she's literally attempting to yank the phone out of his hands, which truly, this is, I think, her trying to flirt. Girl, you're barking up the wrong tree, honey. Get, okay? Be gone. We have no time for you. It's so obvious, even if I did not think he were gay, or if he even is bi, she is not on his radar even one little bit. So you better go. And I think she's the one that's dating Ben, which if she's dating Ben and flirting with Nick, this poor bitch really needs to get some gaydar. I feel bad for her. Like, that sucks. Oh, God, that sucks. Anyway, okay. Cindy says that was a different girl. Okay, cool. Because I saw Ben, like, walk up to her, but I didn't remember if they kissed or not. So, anyway, she makes some announcement about, like, oh, he's definitely, like, she says chirpsing someone, which I've never heard that term, and I don't know if that's new or if that's British, and I just don't know it because of that. But it causes Nick to lose his nerve, and he deletes the text. And when I tell you guys, the sound I let out, I was sitting at my desk watching this, and I just went, like, I got so mad deleting it. Ugh. Can you imagine how elated Charlie would have been to get that text? Ugh. Anyway, he deletes it and he looks sad about it. We cut then to, I think, an actual rugby game based on everybody's uniforms and the fact that Charlie's off to the side wearing one of those, like, little slipovers that says reserve, like a vest. And he's a Tao who says, so we're doing well. He does not know what this game is at all. Which end are we supposed to be sending the ball to? Okay, that one. Nick scored most of the points because he is the rugby king. I wanted to talk to you about Nick. And Charlie says, yeah, me too. You know how I thought he was straight? I kind of have been feeling like maybe he isn't. Like he might like me back. And you see Tao's face sort of fall. And Charlie is reading this whole situation correctly. But I totally understand why Tao is worried. And when he says he's been acting a bit flirty, Tao finally says, Nick likes a girl. And guys, I genuinely do not know what to make of this. Is Tao just making this up? Because in the moment, it feels like he gets so concerned for Charlie that he just blurts out whatever it is that he thinks is going to throw water over Charlie's expectations. He says, I know how much you like him and I just don't want you to get hurt. But when Charlie, like, asks how you know, he says, I messaged Otis since I sort of know him and I know he's friends with Nick. And I slyly asked if Nick was going out with anyone because I might have a friend who was interested. He said that Nick's single, but he's super interested in this girl from the girls' school. Her name's Tara Jones. And I truly cannot imagine where this information is coming from. Like, Tara Jones, it's a real girl. We find out that she is gay, so that's not happening. But we have seen no indicator on our end that Nick's looking through her Instagram or anything. So I'm wondering where that's coming from and if Otis just is blurting a thing out, or if it's that this one girl saw him texting and tried to take his phone and kind of just like came up with a narrative, because people will do that. They'll just leap to a conclusion and then say it like it's true, and everybody takes it as fact, especially in high school. So I was really, really curious, like, what is this? Because my instinct at first was that Tao was just saying whatever to kind of get Charlie to calm down with his expectation. But the detail he went into with saying this, I was sort of like, maybe that's not what it is. He then pulls his phone out, and it's the text between him and Elle. And he says, "We're useless. Can we just get him a cat? He loves cats." And Elle replies, "His parents would hate you." And that feels to me like they were brainstorming about how to get Charlie to let this go. But I don't know. I may just be... And later on, she's the one who says that, don't worry, Tara, I can't say why, but I know is definitely not interested in Nick. So I would think that if she were part of it, she wouldn't have sabotaged themselves like that. But it may be that she and Tao were brainstorming, and then Tao just decided to do this thing and did not actually share with Elle what he did. So she's inadvertently putting a hole in Tao's plans, but didn't mean to. But anyway, and there's a moment here where Charlie stops and waves to, Nick stops and waves to Charlie. And I felt like I wanted to be like, Tao, see? He literally just stopped and was like, "Hi," and waves to a reserve on the sidelines in a way that's not this is not like a friend's interaction. It's just it's so obvious. But again, I respect that they're trying to protect their friend. And then we have the discussion. As your token straight friend, it is my duty to remind you that some people are straight. It's an unfortunate fact of life. And we see Charlie scrolling through Tara's Instagram. And it's just, I really wonder what he's thinking. Elle is aware of who Tara is, of course, and she has her suspicions, but she doesn't want to go asking for info right away from people. And she's new. She's, just in the first stages of friendship. It's a kind of invasive question. Yeah, I get it. I'm not mad at you for that. But she agrees to feel Tara out. So then we have a lab where everybody has to break into pairs, and she turns to Darcy and Tara and says, "Can we be a group of 3?" And Tara's super receptive and just she says literally, "Oh my God, yes, please." And I was like, oh, great. This is the kind of affirmation that somebody wants to be friends that you need, is overwhelming enthusiasm. Again, when we're practicing French, Darcy says, in response to do you have a boyfriend? She says, "Yes, I have a girlfriend." And Elle corrects her. "Un" makes it feminine, so you'd be saying you have a girlfriend. And the two of them look at each other with this arch, eyebrows raised, and she goes, whoops. And they both snicker, and you just see Elle going, I'm not imagining this, right? So yeah, it's the whole thing is just so fun and so loaded, and the way that they're looking at each other, I don't know if people at this school are aware she's trans, and I think they are because they are discussing how she used to be at the boys' school. So I'm going with that they know, and that may be part of why they're putting no effort into keeping this secret, really, is they're just come on, she's not going to have a problem with it. It's fine, But eventually she does come up to them after class and be like, "Are you guys dating?" And they say, "Yep, please don't tell anybody." But I love it. She's in on this secret. And I think it's Tara who says, "You've befriended the school's lesbians," or maybe it's Darcy. But yeah, as a person who just always wound up hanging out with the queer kids and now has a podcast that has such a massive queer community that I'm the only straight person in my circle of friends. I really found myself in this situation a lot. Just like, it was more unusual for people to be straight. Speaking of, we have the convo where Charlie asks Nick to come to his house, but it's prefaced with his like awful imaginings of what if Nick isn't gay and he tells me he's not, and that because you are in love with me, we should simply not be friends anymore. Devastating. But then when he tries to, he's like looking at Nick, having this moment. Nick's like, hey, are you okay? You totally spaced out. Charlie says, no, it's nothing. And he looks away. But Nick leans forward and is like, hey, what's going on? Once again, really intimate, really perceptive. Like, this is somebody who is highly attuned to what's going on with Charlie. This is somebody who's watching his every move. Like, come on. So Charlie looks at him and you see him sort of on the edge of being like, do you like boys? But no, he just says, you want to come around my house? And Nick beams at him. And it's just the most delightful moment. I loved it so much. So yeah, guys, squeeze so bad. So bad. We then have our little montage. Nick's playing the drums. He's very bad. And the two of them share the stool. Like, Charlie comes up and sits next to him on the same stool. First of all, never was my ass small enough that I could do that with anyone. But also, the look that Nick gives, and as he's like, there's just a sense of him being like, I just want to see what happens. I'm just going to let him. Yeah. All right. Okay. And Charlie's holding his hands, and like, it's a very Ghost pottery moment playing, and Charlie, it almost for a moment to me looked like he was gonna try and kiss him. Like, he's glowing, you guys. It's so much. He is so happy. So then we transfer to them in the living room. Charlie's passed out, and as soon as I saw that he was laying there with his arm like straight out, I was like, oh my god, 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 oh my god. Oh, you guys, this is agony. Because he is well and truly passed out. And Nick is looking at his hand. He goes and puts his hand over it, and we get that electric charge static sound, yanks it away, and he's like looking around the room with his arms crossed, kind of like panicking. Checks again. Makes sure Charlie's like for real asleep. Then reaches his hand over one more time and holds it for a little bit longer. The sparks are flying, and he still doesn't do it, but it was a real close one. He almost did it. Like, I really wanted him to. So bad. So then we have him getting his coat on, and Charlie says, I wish you didn't have to go. Again, Charlie's really like, he's really pushing it a little bit in a way that I approve of and I admire and I'm surprised by. And he gets richly rewarded because Nick says, I wish I didn't either. And then you look so cuddly like that. You guys. Oh my god. The look that Charlie gets on his face. He looks up and says, do I? In this breathless, oh my god. Like, he doesn't want to let himself get too excited, but how many ways are there to take that? Like, what straight, unromantically interested friend is going to say something like that? And Nick says, yeah, and then just kind of comes forward and hugs him hard for a while. Charlie later describes it as a full 10 seconds, which I believe. I have no doubt Charlie counted every single instant of that hug. And Nick pulls away, and without even making eye contact, okay, see you Monday, and runs at the door. And then Tori from the background says, I don't think he's straight. And you guys, when I tell you the cheer I let out, knowing somebody had witnessed that moment, because he has just had so much discouragement from his friends for understandable reasons, but still. And I was just thinking, if he tries to describe this to them, I think it's so self-explanatory, but they are seeing it through the lens of he's probably exaggerating. He's seeing what he wants to see. The relief I felt that there was somebody there who saw all of this. Thank God. We needed somebody to support Charlie's suspicions. Thank God. And when she says, I don't think he's straight, there's a look on Charlie's face of just like, oh God, this might be really happening. It's not like he looks unhappy, but there is like a bit of a panic energy to it, you know? So we follow Nick home, and he is on his phone. He's looking at the picture of him with the rugby team. And I was taking from that he's worried what they'll think. So when we cut back to Charlie, he says to his friends, what does it mean when hot straight boy hugs you for like a full 10 seconds? And Tao says he was probably imagining you were Tara, but Elle responds, I can't say why, but I happen to know for sure Tara is not into him. We go back to Nick, and he's looking at all the pictures of Charlie, zooming in on his face, doing that like cute obsessive thing. And when he gets the news from Elle, he sits straight up and is just like, wait, oh my God. Guys, we then go back to Nick, and he is sitting there looking distraught, like, God, what do I do? And he goes to his laptop and sits like in the corner and very achingly slowly types in, am I gay? ? And hovers over the return button and then presses it. And I loved the autofill. When he types in, am I gay? It's like, am I gay quiz from BuzzFeed? Like the whole internet is so ready for this question. I just really liked seeing the autofills. And that's the end of the episode. And I'm so glad that I got to cover this tonight, because if I didn't get to watch the next one immediately, I was going to die. You guys. Okay. I have got to wrap because I'm finishing up really late now. My poor boy probably has to poop so bad. But thank you, Cindy, for commissioning this, for bearing with me with my tech problems. Delighted to be here. Hope you guys are enjoying the coverage. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.